how do I know if my business is eligible for a payroll protection loan? What portion of a payroll protection loan is forgivable if I do get one? And can you give me some advice on how to account for my payroll protection loan money once I get it?
Well, again, thanks for being here. And I'll follow Patricia's lead and say that, again, this is all basically a consultation that I'm doing my best to, give you the facts as I know them about the available funding out there. But to the extent you have questions about your specific businesses, you should be consulting with an attorney and perhaps an accountant. A lot of my clients have been relying on their accountants because, as I'll mention, your eligibility is dependent upon certain financial metrics, which the accountant probably is best situated to put together for you. So as far as who's eligible, I want to say that if you Google the PPP, you'll get 1,000 summaries of it. But if you go to the SBA website, the Small Business Administration website, they do a good job summarizing it. But in short, if you have 500 or less employees and you qualify under a certain type of business, there are certain businesses that are excluded from being eligible, and it's a laundry list of businesses. But most normal businesses do qualify, and the loan is designed to help you prevent you from having to lay off your employees. Obviously, the Paycheck Protection Program is designed to let you keep your employees. So what exactly is the payroll cost? It's laid out in a certain list of certain things. Includes I'll read a few of them: vacation time, leave time, benefits, group healthcare benefits, retirement benefits, state and local taxes assessed on employee compensation, a whole host of things. So an accountant can help you figure out the number that you're eligible for. But the biggest question that I've been answering for clients is, the forgiveness question. And I'll give you the caveat. We had a prep call for this webinar. We talked about this. It's really hard to say how loan forgiveness is going to work in this situation because we don't know how it's going to be enforced. I have not seen the loan agreement, so it's hard to advise on exactly what potential consequences there are if you violate the terms of the loan. But in essence, 75% of the amount of loan that you take can be forgiven so long as it's used for the qualified costs that I mentioned, the payroll costs, which includes a bunch of things that I mentioned on the payroll side, but also could be mortgage interest, could be rent, utility costs. But so if you wind up laying off any of your employees, you could lose eligibility. So a lot of people have been asking, what do I do if I already laid the people off? I think the statute allows you to bring those people back. Lots of permutations of, well, what if someone doesn't want to come back? Unfortunately, there's no answers to that question. But the accounting part of the question, the last part that you asked, Jennifer, is a good one. And it was one of my colleagues, I think it was Bradley, who mentioned this yesterday, which I think is a really good idea. A lot of clients apparently are, if they get the money, they're opening a separate bank account, and they're using that bank account to pay only the qualified expenses that you can pay through the loan. So if it comes to it where someone, and when this happens, I don't know, whether it's at the end of year tax filing or some other process, it's some sort of investigation into how you use the funds. If you are using that bank account, which is funded solely with the PPP funds, then you should be able to say that, as you can see, I paid for all of the things that qualify: payroll, mortgage, rent, things of that nature. So that's one way of doing this. But again, I would recommend that you not only speak to your lawyer, but you also speak to your accountant, because the application process, if you haven't went through it, requires a calculation of your payroll costs from the prior year, and you're entitled to two and a half times that amount. There are resources out there that have created calculators for people to do that on their own. If you go on my website, there's a chart that lays out all the different programs and some of the resources. But again, I would probably encourage you to speak to your accountant, who can do the calculations for you. So, if you are filling out the application, you're not taking more money than you're entitled to.
Right. How can I get a food vendor's permit in New York City right now? What precautions do I need to take to sell on the streets and reopen my food vendor's cart during COVID-19? Any of my New York attorneys have some thoughts on this?
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is that I'm not I'm not sure if your business would be considered an essential business. You might consider going to the NewYorkState.gov website and reading the governor's order on this, on what would qualify as an essential business. And again, if anyone knows, but to the extent you're allowed to do it, you're not violating the executive order by doing it. I mean, using common sense, taking the necessary precautions to make sure that you're not transmitting a communicable disease. And being overly cautious is probably the best route.
Yes, good practical advice.
Also,
Brad?
this person is asking how to get the vendor license to begin with.
They said, yes, how can I get a food vendor's permit in New York City?
Well, the thing is, you need to get the license, which is not a problem, but then you need the vendor permit, and the vendor permits, there's only a very limited number of them. So typically people go through brokers, kind of like the way the medallions were. Now they probably just give you a medallion if you wanted one, but they're hard to get. It's, I was reading an article that they're like $18,000 or $20,000 to get it from someone who currently has the vendor permit. But once you go through a broker and you get one, then you just need to make sure you're considered essential and you can go out and do it.
Got it. Okay. Let's see. All right. Neil, here is a family law question. Maybe we answered this before, but I'm not sure. How can I remove a false review from Facebook? I've done everything I can and I've reported it over 20 times and Facebook has done nothing. I worry that I'm losing money.
I'd be happy to give a response since Great. I see Lou hasn't unmuted yet. And then if Lou has another response, then of course I'll be interested to hear it. This is a tremendous problem. It's cruel and it's unfair to business owners that this kind of defamation is so well protected. The first thing that you're going to want to do is, of course, is try to work with Facebook. But, if that's not possible, then I've seen people succeed in suing for defamation. And if they don't know who to sue, suing John Doe and basically just getting a ruling from the court that it was in fact defamation, and then sending it to the search engine or other service and asking them to remove it based on the fact that it's now proven to be defamatory in nature. A lot of people have gotten bad reviews and stuff off of Google that way. I haven't checked in the last 6 months to see if it's still working because it's discretionary by Facebook or Amazon or Google or whatever. But a lot of times nowadays, it's the only thing that works. I don't know if Lou has some other understanding of how to deal with this.
No, it's a reality of doing business in the day and age that we live in, and it's amazing how it's the issue's only being exacerbated now when everyone's stuck in their house and a computer in front of them and they're angry. These things are being popped out there more often. I think a strong-handed approach in going back to the Facebooks and the Googles of the world and laying out the evidence, which disproves what the review says is not true by any means. The problem that you have is, as Bradley alluded to, is that statements of opinion are accepted under the First Amendment. So depending on the way that the search engines or the companies approach this, they're going to take a approach towards, if it's a 50-50 call, they're going to leave it up probably. That being said, like I was saying before, whether or not you try to do it on your own versus them getting a strongly worded letter from a lawyer, I think they're two different things and send two different messages. And I'm of the opinion that, to the extent Facebook is getting 1,000 inquiries from people like you in the same position, they're going to respond to the squeaky wheel first. And that squeaky wheel typically is a lawyer writing on their behalf. So if it's adversely affecting your business that much, you might want to consider talking to an experienced lawyer who writes a letter for you and see what they could do. And then if you have to, like Bradley said, move to get the judgment and then go from there.
Yes, Ifan.
I'm just kind of legally nerding out here that when I heard about the Elon Musk case and how the federal court came down with that one, which I think is relevant to the definition case, I was really surprised and shocked. I think Bradley, what you said, it's amazing how much protection one gets on these sites and are able to say almost whatever they want to say. It's kind of shocking.
Yeah, the Musk thing was really interesting. But what's interesting about suing for defamation, and by the way, you also have to name the search engine as not a direct party, I forget what they call it, but like just formally including them in the lawsuit just so they have notice. But a lot of times, whoever you're suing, you don't even know who wrote it. It's anonymous. And so no one ever responds to it. You just end up getting some kind of a default judgment and then sending it over to the search engines. And a lot of the time, they just remove it now that you have some kind of a court order saying, yes, this is defamation. But yeah, the Musk thing was really something else.
Lou.
Yeah, I'll put this out there. I mean, imagine if you got to the point where you're asking a bunch of lawyers the question, that you probably considered this. But, I think, from a non-legal perspective, responding to these types of comments in a positive way, laying out the facts. So if someone sees the review and they see your version of the story, which again, there's a balance. You can't be reacting at a point for point, so you look like they've got one on you and you're upset by it. But at the same time, putting the facts out there to the extent you can in the review and detailing an issue that was left out of the comment, then if someone's reading the comment above it and they see your comment, then they might put it in context. Because if you have 100 great Google reviews and there's one person out there who's obviously gone scorched earth on you, and you've responded positively to that, I think an informed consumer, might make a better decision that way. But I do understand, given that I do use Google Ads and and other types of advertisements like that, having that negative review does move you down in the search. So, but it's a minor thing you might be doing short of litigation.